Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1904 Club, the Hull City podcast, of course, from the Hull Daily Mail. And we come to you after another Hull City victory, a fifth home win of the campaign, beating Portsmouth by 3-2. And Prutts is with us this afternoon. And Prutts, that long ball from Ryan Giles was fantastic, wasn't
it? Absolutely baffled me, that. Yeah, just been discussing us recording and trying to work out what on earth was going on. But yeah, caught up with the highlights. Obviously, we kept abreast of it during the course of the games on Saturday lunchtime. And John Driscoll, a very good commentary friend of mine, calling out how direct the pass was. But it was a beautiful direct pass, something that Beckham would be proud of, or Beckenbauer would be proud of. But yeah, that threw me for a little bit. And the fact that it was Hughes, who had, from what I could see, good game going forward, didn't he, from Hull City's point of view? So plenty to like. Great goals scored. Another topsy-turvy game. I think it's Terry Devlin, isn't it, that got a brace. Never scored in the Championship. Why not let Hull City get him up and running in that particular vein? But otherwise, just the kind of carnage that I suppose 18 months ago we were potentially eyebrow raised for what the owner wanted from his football club. But my God, he's got it with bells on now, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Kathryn, what was your thoughts on Saturday? Because it was, as Prutts rightly says, it was topsy-turvy. Should have been 2-0 up after 9 minutes, go a goal down, come back and lead 2-1, chuck it away and concede another bad goal before half-time, and then win it with an absolute belter.
I was watching the game from the Emirates on my phone because I was working Arsenal-Chelsea women, which had quite a lot of controversy. And I don't know why, but quite a lot of women's football fans think all the journalists are Arsenal fans. And our second goal, when we scored it, about seconds later, Arsenal scored. Their goal actually got disallowed. But I was there cheering, giving it like you've scored. And then this whole stadium started cheering. I thought, I'm not beating the allegations that we're all Arsenal fans. It looks like I'm cheering the goal on the pitch, which was then disallowed. By which time we'd conceded, so I looked sad at the disallowed goals. So it was all a bit chaotic, all going on. But we got the winner when I was waiting for. Thankfully, before the managers came in to do their post match. Otherwise, I might have interrupted one of them. But it was just that classic kind of City game that we're used to seeing this season. And I was saying to you before we started, it felt like. The attacking was brilliant. The defending was frustrating me, but because we won the game, I'm just sort of put my frustrations to the side and enjoyed the 3 goals. Which all 3 goals I thought were really good, all quite different. But the first one, brilliant kind of passing move. I don't know how many passes were involved in it, but it felt like quite a lot. The second kind of sheer determination from Kyle Joseph to just get up and win that header, and then the third, obviously the Route 1 goal, as Sky described it as. But it was. I mean, brilliant pass from Charlie Hughes and a fantastic touch and finish from Gelhardt. So can't complain, really, can we?
Not at all. Burnsy, we were both at the MKM Stadium, biggest crowd of the season so far to watch that. I think when that first goal went in, everybody was a collective like, oh, big crowd, failed to deliver again, especially after they should have been 2 up. I mean, when Regan did brilliantly to free Joseph, and his first time shot was well saved by the goalkeeper, in fairness, and then Joff did really well down the right-hand side to cut in, and you almost felt he'd done all the hard work and then slid it wide, and then they go and get a ricochet goal, which potentially earlier in it, the goalkeeper could have done better. I think it's fair to say, but they responded really well with both setbacks, didn't they? Falling behind, then wrestling it back and going in front, and then conceding a minute later, right on the stroke of half time. I mean, they dominated the second half without ever really looking like scoring. If we're honest, maybe Regan, his diving header, but apart from that, the goal was sublime. And in those games, at this stage of the season, when you've got so many injuries on the cusp of the international break, 3-game week, you find a way to win, don't you?
I thought it was a big performance and a big result. I just want to go back to something Prutts said, because I wrote it down before we started recording. I wrote down, Adjan must be loving it. It's everything he wanted from his football club, really. It's exciting. There's goals at both ends. The scoring in every game. I think I'm right in saying that. The only time they failed to score was the Blackburn, or that's the last time they failed to score was the Blackburn defeat.
Yeah, Coventry and Blackburn are the only 2 games they've not scored.
Yeah. So he must be loving it. And I thought the goal scoring was terrific. The standard of it. Yet another scorer in Destan. I'm going to give big credit yet again to the coach, to the manager. Sergei just gets it right again. There he is. He makes a change. He gives Destan his first start. He scores. Is that the 11th different scorer now in the
12, I
team
think.
this season? 12 now. He keeps Joseph in the side because he recognises what his work rate brings to the side, and he gets the extra bonus of Joseph getting a goal as well. Yeah, defensively they're a bit porous at times. Press the self-destruct button at times, but I'd watch them, and I don't have any feeling of dread when that happens because I usually think they've got enough to get out of it. They'll turn it round. They seem to have a quiet confidence about themselves. The manager has given them that confidence. They've built that confidence in terms of what they're doing. So all in all, everybody's loving it, and we've got lots of texts reflecting that. But the owner must be purring with what he's seeing because that's what he wanted.
Prutts, obviously you had both games. You had the Norwich game 12:30 last week, and you've had the game at 12:30 on Saturday as well. I think again a lot of people would have seen them win at Norwich and go, yeah, fair cop, that's a good result. Albeit Norwich have got problems. Yeah. Then they go to Derby in midweek, fall behind to Carter Morris, who's obviously now on I think 10 goals for the season, a set piece goal. They respond second half, throw it away, but then respond again. So I think 6 points from those 3 games is still a very good return, isn't it?
Really good. And I think their ability to stay in games or manage, as Burnsy's saying, that disappointment where a goal might go in, but it's not a sense of what it would have been last season, which is how on earth does City get back into the game? They've got so much attacking intent. There's a lot from you mentioned the goals conceded, and in a game such as this, as Kathryn says, sometimes you've just got to park the cynicism and celebrate it for what it is, which is a real kind of barnstorming 3-2 victory with wonderful goals from City's point of view. But defensively, yes, there's a big deflection off the back of questionable work defensively for the first goal. The second goal is one of the best crosses I've seen so far this season, yet you've got a man that runs into the box who has company into the box and then is just left. So, A, it's a very good ball, B, it's a very good header. But if you leave players to do that in the Championship, then they should be able to do that all the time. There's no pressure on the ball. There's no pressure on the header, the man heading the ball in Terry Devlin. So there is a disappointment there. But when you can do what you can do with Joe Gelhardt, and he goes back to what we were saying, was it last week or the week before? That potential for attention on someone like Joe. He looks like he's absolutely loving what he's doing for City. The goal that he took, there's a really good first touch. The second touch comes off his midriff, and then having the composure to drop it over the top of the goalkeeper is an absolute thing of beauty. And it's the type of goal that deserves to be knocking around in a team at the top end of the Championship, which is obviously where City find themselves. And you look at what happened in midweek. Everyone's got their own story coming in and out of it. Derby now 5 wins on the spin. They've not done that in something like 5 years in the Championship. They're a formidable team in good form. City probably hit them potentially at the wrong time. But the fact that wasn't then exacerbated by going down to what Pompey were able to do to them at the weekend shows that there's a very quick learning lesson for the couple of days in between. And now you go into an international break, sat in the playoffs, with a couple of weeks to celebrate and work on those things that they do so very well, but to also be calmly reminded of what I said, letting themselves down. It's a bit harsh to say that when you see where City are, but the little tweaks, the concentration, the ability to do both sides there. We talk about Charlie Hughes and we talk about defensively, him being part of stuff going forward, but he is part of a defence that at times looks easy to score against. So there's work to do there in the next couple of weeks for them, but so much to like, and so much to like from a very strong week's worth of work.
Absolutely, Kathryn. 5 wins from 7 is very good form, and you know they lost at Watford in a game they shouldn't have lost to. They then responded by coming from behind to draw with Preston, beat Sheffield United, and obviously went on that 6-game unbeaten run. They then had the loss at Derby, which we all know should never have happened. I mean, the very least, given the way they played in the second half, they should have got out of Pride Park with a point. They didn't. How do you respond to that setback? Well, they've responded. And I know people will say, well, it's Portsmouth, you know, they were in terrible form, not won away since the opening day, but they're fighting for their lives. You know, nothing's given for free in the Championship. They're not going to come and roll over. And City found a way to win the game. So that, you know, 5 wins in 7 is very, very good, isn't it?
It is, and I think I didn't feel like there would be panic after the Derby game because it wasn't like we played badly. You know, maybe first half we weren't as good as we have been in other games, but you know, second half we played very well. As you said, we should have at least come away with a point. But it didn't feel like there was ever going to be kind of, you know, blame, kind of, you know, finger pointing at people, or that, like, stuff like that. I didn't think like it was going to kind of have a knock-on effect the next game, and obviously, thankfully, it didn't. I do wonder still. We talk about the defence a little bit. I am also looking at the goalkeeper slightly in terms of, you know, I mean, the second goal at Derby is kind of an error between him and the defence and the communication. You know, I mean, maybe we'll come on to that a little bit later, but again, you know, responding against Portsmouth, it didn't feel like there was any kind of loss of confidence from that defeat at Derby, which is a good thing. I think, you know, last season it felt like having a negative result, it would have a knock-on effect into going into the next game, whereas it feels like we can just kind of, you know, we have a defeat, you know, like the Watford game, all right, we move on from it, it's in the past, and they go on and it's a kind of a fresh start in the next game, which is a really good thing. You know, I'm sure the players do get annoyed at each other when things aren't going right, and you know, they're kind of asking for more, but it doesn't feel like it's in a toxic sort of way, which it maybe felt like last season when things were going badly. It feels like it's a really constructive thing, and they're getting the best out of each other, and obviously the manager is doing that as well. And I quite liked his comments after the Derby game. He didn't seem to be, I'm sure he would have been frustrated to lose, especially in the way that they did, but you didn't kind of get that sense from him that he was, you know, it was panicking him. It's just a defeat, a disappointment, and you know, collectively they obviously moved on from it, and got that result against Portsmouth.
Burnsy, before I come to you, Prutts, obviously you've spoken to Sergei down the line on your coverage. As Kathryn rightly says there, he is very reasoned. You know, you speak to him after a defeat, and on Tuesday night at Pride Park, he was like, it's a game we shouldn't have lost, but we have. It's football, it happens. You know, yeah, Shemi and Ivor could do better, but they'll learn from it. You know, no panic. We've got to respond. How impressed have you been on the occasions you've spoken to him with the way he carries himself and how that is clearly translating into the players? That even if they do go a goal behind, there's no panic, there's no downing tools or throwing a paddy. It's you know, right, let's focus and get back in it.
I suppose clearly there is the operative word, because he does seem extremely clear with what he wants from his players, from the message that he puts out through the media and how he reacts to games, going off Kathryn's point, because it's a team that's fundamentally different to last season, and a squad that's different. There's more belief, there's more quality, there's more consistency. The players are performing better more often. And again, as I said earlier on in the season, when you discuss how good a manager is, that's part of what Sergei is doing, and secondly, a more cynically part of the players actually doing the jobs, which to a large extent the squad as a whole last season didn't do, because you end up staying up on the last day by luck more than anything, really. But that's gone, that's past, and they should be congratulated and celebrated for being able to respond to a campaign which was predominantly doom and gloom, and transform themselves into an attacking unit that the manager and his coaching staff, we mentioned his coaching staff last week, and it's a good combination of domestic and international who understand the Championship, yet that other part of what Sergei's probably brought, because there is that the finger that's pointed at managers that haven't really managed over here, and do they know what this league is? And sometimes it's a stick to beat coaches with, but other times you could see it as an inherently positive thing. He's attacking it in his own way. He's bringing something out of this City side that we've not seen for a fair few seasons, have we? That flair going forward, that intent going forward is a thrill to see. And it's quite clearly that his message is very clear for the players to understand. And he's got good communication lines with what the ownership wants and with what his job within the media is. So, I mean, right now, without getting too carried away, he's ticking a lot of boxes. The club's ticking a lot of boxes. and the players themselves, because there's been a lot of chat about the owner, about who's in charge of what the owner wants decision making wise, from the players coming in and the players going out. Now all that's been boxed off. It's been very, very simply left to what the manager's got with the players that he's got and what he can do with these players, and he's doing a very good job indeed.
Burnsy?
You make an interesting point, and I want to come to Kathryn's point on Pandora in a minute as well. And I was chatting to one of the sort of coaches, one of the dads down at the under sevens football yesterday morning. Come on, Esperanza. And he was saying it's funny, Burnsy. Nobody's talking about with Jakirovic, or it takes time for a foreign coach to adjust to the English game and everything like that. He's just like a duck to water. He's straight in, and he's doing it. On the subject of the coach, David Fergus sends the 1904 club a message saying the biggest difference under Jakirovic is that we have a manager who adapts. Recently, we've used 4-2-3-1, 3-5-2, 3-4-3, and 4-3-3. I think I've got 4 lines and a corner there on my bingo card, and even a plan B at half time. We didn't get that under the 3 previous managers, and added to that a much higher tempo. Just on the subject of Pandora, I thought his response on Saturday was excellent to the obvious. I mean, he was culpable along with Ajayi at Derby. But personally, I saw what I wanted from a goalkeeper. He was confident. He came from the ball. He didn't shy away from anything, and he gave some confidence to his defence. So well done him from my point of view. There may be different viewpoints on that.
There was a real sense of togetherness as well, and the goalkeeper celebrated. I mean, that header at the end, the defensive header, which takes there's a wonderful ball whipped in. Was it Charlie Hughes that got his head on that?
Charlie Hughes off the line,
brilliant.
And the reaction of his goalkeeper is one of a real sense of togetherness. He understands how big that header is and how pivotal that was, because I can't remember who it is at the back post has got a free header if he doesn't get on that. And the fact that he manages to get it up and away from goal whilst being a yard off his own line, phenomenal, really. Yeah, it was. And again, I mentioned Charlie, and I mentioned the defence with regards to Devlin's second goal, not necessarily covering themselves in glory, albeit a wonderful ball into the box. But when they were needed, after going ahead, that resilience once again shown as a collective. Yes, there might have been a ball that was allowed to be whipped in, but your mates at the back post saving you, which I thought was tremendous bit defending.
It did make me smile that we chucked on Shemi Ajayi and Akinfenmewo to try and shore it up, and their goalkeeper still got a free header from 7 yards out in the last minute of added time.
Ask Kathryn about that. Ask Kathryn about our friend shoring things up. But he'll get there slowly but surely, won't it?
He was good at Norwich.
Yeah, he's good at Norwich still.
I thought Panda was better. I still think the first goal is Amir gives away a foul. It happens. The ball's whipped in, but the defensive line and the attacking line is nowhere near the goalkeeper, and he elects this time to punch it. I still think he can, because he's under no pressure. I still think he can grab it. He can catch it, and that all goes away. I mean, the second goal obviously is Amir's fault. He does brilliantly in the initial situation to win the ball, and he sort of runs around in a little circle. Amir looks really promising at times, but he wants so much time on the ball that he just isn't getting that in the Championship.
He's not going to get it at all in the Championship, is he? Let's be honest.
No, and then 2 players rob him. He sort of ambles out to Murphy. Who, in fairness, the ball for Murphy's top draw, 1 touch, bang out, and then Devlin, Charlie and Gilo just watch Devlin just amble into the box and head it in. So that's really poor. I mean, Amir has to do so much better in that. But I agree with you, Burnsy, to a point that Pandora was better. There was one late second half cross comes in, and he comes and he double punches and he gets it out of the way. I still think, if I'm being hypercritical, that he should catch that ball for the first cross that comes in for the first goal. If he catches it, it doesn't go back out. They don't recycle it, and then the Devlin's deflect. I mean, Carl Joseph was having a bit of a nightmare early on, wasn't he? Because he obviously had he should have scored, and then the ball goes in off him. But he, as we'll talk about in a bit, he more than made up for that with his closing down of the goalkeeper in added time, and his obviously, as Kathryn said, his fantastic header. So I just think that's where we are. We're in the Championship. you've got a goalkeeper that is up and down. You know, that's why he's in the Championship, I think, without being overly harsh. Goalkeepers, generally, if they make a mistake, it's going to be a goal.
It was similar to the Charlton game though, wasn't it? Because like where the actual goal came from wasn't directly Pando's fault, because like several different things happened from that corner, but he had that thing where he'd punched it out straight to a Charlton player, and then it led to a corner, and you sort of felt like, again, that was one he could have caught. And I'm not here to kind of slate him, because I think he's really popular with the fans. I think we all kind of like him. He's really brilliant at times. I just go back to that point I think we made it earlier in the season, that he's got no competition, and I don't think that's a good thing for him, because he knows he could make a mistake, he's not going to get dropped. And I'm not saying that he's then taking his foot off the gas, but Phillips behind him is just not, he's not going to force him out of the team. So my question, Bass, was I know they were looking at potentially a goalkeeper in the summer, bringing in another one. I think that was probably because Pando was linked with Borough. So I assume a goalkeeper is not probably a priority in January. But in my mind, that just could be the difference between, you know, I think we got the best out of Pando when he had that competition with Rushworth last season, and it made him become player of the season. And I feel like he's just not got that this season. So whether it's having a knock-on impact, I think he just has the weaker parts of his game are sometimes coming and collecting crosses and his distribution, which was part of the problem with the goal at Derby. He's you know, brilliant shot stopper. You know, he's got that communication with the defence most of the time. Seems to be a popular player of the squad. He just lets himself down at times, and I do think having someone pushing him a bit more could get the best out of him. But obviously Phillips is just not the person to do that.
Yeah,
I think I'm just looking back at that first goal, and you are right. But I mean, and again, it's whether when you do look at goals and celebrate them for what they are, and then from a defensive point of view, work out what the kind of genesis of the whole thing is. I totally get what you're saying, and it's probably akin to where we're finding ourselves talking about Hull City this season. I think collectively the standards have gone up, so we're looking at whether the players' standards go up as well. That is a very 20-25 way of defending a corner. A free kick putting, because on the one side, a goalkeeper coach would say, well, he's probably got about 25 yards almost on the punch, which is fine. I totally get it, because if it's a headed clearance or a kick clearance, that gives everyone the chance to get up. But I am with you in the sense of breaking it down of, yes, there's whip on it. Yes, it's bending away from you with players running in. But there's a good 5 yards between him and the person that first line of people coming towards him. And maybe we sound like a pair of old farts, but that is, if ever, going back to Kathryn's point about him being susceptible to crosses, then that's not in a championship sense, that's not a goalkeeper under pressure to take a cross. That's a relative, in my head, not being a goalkeeper of any shape or form. That to me is something that I would want them to catch. And I totally get what you're saying, but I'm sure that you could get a goalkeeper on here, former goalkeeper, current goalkeeper, goalkeeper coach, that would say, this is the reason why he's punched it, and I would be more than happy to be corrected on that.
Yeah. Did you want the fans saying?
Well, just on the subject of Pandor, Phil Moore says, great season, still need competition for Pandor. Andy Howden, I'll come to Andy's in a minute. These are some more general ones. Liam,
is he from Howden?
Woodward says, no, well, I don't know.
Does he sell kitchens?
Check if you want. Next week you can send us another message. Geographically, let us know where you are.
It could be our weekly advertisement. Let's say hello to Howdens, everyone. Who needs a kitchen? Hello, Howdens. We got our guitars last week. Yeah.
You obviously got your piano and guitar from Goff and David.
Kathryn did, yeah.
He loved it. He did send
half
me a
the
message.
band started.
Loved the mention at Goff and Davy. Liam Woodward says, hi all, do you think this is the best football you've seen from Hull in recent history? I can't think of a manager that has got the team playing this well in a long time. I tend to agree with that. Yeah, I think so. Tiger Delic says there are mistakes that need ironing out, but I'm starting to believe this team will always score a goal. When's the last time we failed to score in a half of football, let alone a full match? Well, they didn't score in the first half at Derby, did they? Dimitri says, so many positives for me about City this season. Many already mentioned here. Can I add that something Nigel Adkins always advocated, and that's togetherness. This squad has it, apart from one maybe, and to a man, they always put a shift in. I don't know which one he's talking about, to be perfectly honest. And they all look together to me. And Andy Howden says this fine form began when Regan Slater came on as a half-time sub against Preston. Brilliant attitude to force his way back into the first 11. And Sergei's pressing game suits him so well. Yeah, very good. And one more, and then I'll shut up. Chris Dyer says 25 points from 15 games equals 1.67 points per game. Replicate that over the next 31 games equals 51 points. 76 points would comfortably get us top 6. Club is the most together it's felt since 2012-13 promo season under Steve Bruce. 07-08 also. Both times we were underestimated. Do it again at their peril.
Just for
talk about Regan Slater.
Just quickly before we do, at this stage last season, City were 19th and had 15 points as a comparison, and they also only won 5 games at home all season last year. That was their 5th home win of the season so far in the first 8 games. So, just as a quick comparison of, I know last season has almost zero relevance to the Jakirovic because he's new, he's brought in new players, but I think it is a useful yardstick of how bad City were last year. You know, they were already pretty much well on the way to matching their goals tally of last year. I mean, the fact that McBurney's already got 7, he's not played for a month. Joe Galhart's now gone to 7. He's got 5 in his last 6, including 2 assists. I mean, when we touched on earlier on, Destan scored a brilliant goal on Saturday. That's his first. There's now 12 players that have scored goals this season. Joel and Darla obviously got off the mark in the league, at least at Derby in midweek. So they just keep ticking things off. And to have 25 points, you know, they're sitting 5th in the Championship. You know, I know Ipswich have got a game in hand, but even if they win that, City are still in the playoffs. So they're doing really well. And that's against the backdrop of all last season's struggles, the transfer, the restrictions in the summer, all the injuries they've had. Miller, Bellumi out, although it's good to see Bellumi back on the bench. Burnley's out. Lundstrom's been out. Casey Palmer's been out. We've not seen Elliot Matazo yet at all. So I just think when you factor in everything, you can only be, and yes, we can be annoyed about some of the defending and the goals they concede. And that just comes from because they're doing so well. You don't want them to balls it up by giving silly goals away. Only the Sheffield clubs have conceded more than City's 24. So, yeah, but enjoy it. And it's, as we say, the football, Kathryn, is enjoyable to watch. Some of the football they played in the build-up to the goal on Saturday was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The one-touch movement and the final ball and the finish. It's just fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Prutts mentioned Charlie Hughes is going forward. He was really involved in that first goal, you know, picking the ball up from defence, running forward. And then I think what was the most impressive bit was when I think he got the ball back from Gelhardt. He could have played it to Coyle straight away, but he took a touch inside, played it with his left foot in between the 2 defenders, and that just killed both of them and left Coyle with loads of space to get that crossing. So, yeah, I mean, they are playing some brilliant stuff. I know Burnsy was obviously talking about Slater, and I think, you know, he maybe goes unnoticed in the role that he's playing in it because he's maybe not playing those killer passes all the time or he's not getting the goals. But I do think he has been exceptional in the last few weeks. And he always seems to have this this thing with when a new manager comes in. We're never quite sure if the manager fancies him at first. He sort of comes in and out of the team, and we're all kind of a bit like, oh, is he kind of, you know, fancied by this manager? And I think he's had it with all of them. And then eventually they put him in and he sort of stays in and he kind of maybe proves people wrong. And he's done it quite a few times now over the last few years. And I think his contract is up in the summer, but he's got potentially the option. They've got the option to extend it. So I know there was talk about him potentially going last summer. I don't know kind of what the latest is on whether they're looking at a new contract for him or not. But I mean, at the minute, you would think, you know, that he's somebody they want to stick around because he always gives 100%. I think maybe he struggled a little bit at the start of this season, but he's, you know, come back into the team and done really well. And probably, I say he goes unnoticed, but I think people are kind of noticing what he does for the team, even though he might not be getting the goals or assists off the ball, and his pressing is playing a really big part in the football that the rest of the players around him are able to play.
I mean, he should. Yeah, you're right. He should have got an assist on Saturday because his ball for Joseph was brilliant, and his graft. I mean, you talk of the graft as well. Like Louis Coyle winning, there was no right to get for the second goal. There was absolutely no right for him to win that corner, and he doesn't give up on a lost cause, and he wins the corner, and Joff puts the ball in, and Carl scores. So Regan and Louis, two League One players that came to the club in League One, have been brilliant. Prutts, what is it about Slater that you, as a former midfielder yourself, a player that was box to box and ran around a lot and liked to get in people's faces, which Regan does? What do you like about him?
I mean, all of those that you've just said. I think the tenacity that he shows and his reaction to being, when I say squad player, I don't mean a squad player that doesn't play, but in the sense of having to work his way into the team, make sure he stays in the team, prove to different managers what his worth is to the team. He seemingly comes across like a very good teammate, doesn't he? You don't see too many quotes from Regan with regards to frustration or displeasure. His reaction is seemingly one of, well, I'll just work harder, which I think is a great example to the rest of the squad. And I think given the fact that there has been a bit of change, obviously with management and different players of different capabilities coming in and out of the football club, he's been quite a pleasing constant, hasn't he, I think, for City fans. And his ability to get on the pitch. And I suppose the debate comes, or not the debate, but the challenge is for him, going back to Kathryn's point about having to prove himself to different managers and people coming in, is being as reliable to be one of the first names on the team sheet to do what he does. Now, you don't have to be one of the first names on the team sheet because you're going to score every game or create something every game. You need to be that because you are consistent and reliable. And I think that's what is really, really showing, because there's always been a very workable and very, very capable footballer at this level, I think. And again, that's not damning him with faint praise, because the Championship is so inherently competitive. And given where City find themselves knocking around at the top of the division, where there's clubs, as we have seen with very recent Premier League history, that are stinking the place up, to be brutally honest, at this moment in time. So what City are doing and what Regan's part in what City are doing is something that A, he should be very happy about, and B, City fans just reaffirmed what he means to the club and what he means to the team right now.
Burnsy, who, assuming that Lundstrom is back after the international break and we expect him back in the squad at QPR, what does the manager do in midfield? Obviously, Slater has been the constant in recent weeks. Amir's been in and out of the team. Darko Jabi's kind of been in and out and largely had to come off the bench. Crooks has occasionally dropped deeper, but has been playing a bit further forward as well. Lundstrom's going to be back. So what if you're the gaffer, what are you doing?
Well, it's a very good question. Depends on Lundstrom's fitness. Is he going to rush him back in? He tends not to be a manager, I don't think, that rushes players back into the side. They've won the last game. They're in good form. Amir is, he's got that little mark against him because, the second goal was his fault on Saturday. Beautifully constructed, but he lost the ball in midfield and shouldn't have lost the ball in midfield. But he does good work defensively. So, if he doesn't change the side, I wouldn't be surprised. But the thing I like about him, he's not afraid to change the side. He does change it. And Ndala scored at Derby in midweek, but didn't get a start on Saturday. I take it that was him marshalling his fitness. And so, I shall wait and see with interest. But I never want to sit up there and look at the team selection or whatever, or when we see it come into the press room, I never think, what the heck's he doing? Why is he doing that? Equally, I don't look at his substitutions and think, I'm not sure about that one. Everything you can see the thinking behind it. So I think you just got to trust him, and he will know best. He'll have all the data, and he'll make the right decision. Of that, I've no doubt. There's a couple of messages, and we've not really mentioned him. Dave Andrews says Destan was given a start and showed he can hold and lay the ball off, create assists, and has a finish. A few games too late for me when McBurney has been out. Still a very good backup when he returns. If City can reduce the goals conceded, then they can be contenders. I was impressed with Destan. Very impressed with him in the first half. Held the ball up. Scored a lovely goal. For me, actually, the first goal was better than the winning goal. Just because of the team play in it. There's so many players involved.
Really good goal.
And the finish Really, really good play. And equally, I mean, the winning goal was a fantastic non-long ball goal. But it was just Destin impressed me. I wasn't quite sure. I'd not seen enough. From what I'd seen, I thought, is he going to be steady in front of goal? But that was a high quality finish. It was a really high quality finish from him. So that was impressive. Ran out of a bit of steam in second half. I mean, that's understandable. It was his first start, but that was good. You mentioned the injuries there, Lundstrom coming back. There is some questions long term about injuries. Crooks, is he going to have this shoulder up, or is he going to play on? What's the latest, Bass? What do we know?
It sounds like he's going to play on. That it was determined after his scans and meetings with consultants that he doesn't need surgery immediately. He's going to play on until he can't, really. I think they're managing it fairly carefully. Crooks seems okay. Apparently it's not causing him too much discomfort. Obviously, if there's a point where it does, then he'll have to go under the knife, and then you're probably going to lose him for a couple of months as well. So, I mean, he's on 4 bookings actually, so he's only one away from a match ban as well. But just let him crack on. He's playing well. He's impacting games. I've been really impressed with him. A lot of the work he does is you don't always notice what Crooks does, but he's there. He's got some nice touches. He's physical. He's got real good experience. And Prutts, somebody like Crooks is, having him fitting around the squad and available is really important, isn't it, to what they want to try and do?
Yeah, it goes back to when he came in, what we thought we'd get from him, which was personality, which was character, which was an air of leadership and experience, given the fact that he's been in and around it for such a long period of time, obviously moving over to MLS and coming back. You've got a player there that's a bit more rounded. So no, he's one of many players that I think personality-wise you would look to in a dressing room to be able to lead the rest of them. And I've always enjoyed what he can do on a football pitch. Quite a sizable operator, of course, but that belies his ability to get around. So no, and from an injury point of view, a maintenance point of view, he strikes me as the type of fella that if he was adamant that something needed doing, it'd get done. If he can kind of crack on, as you say, without needing surgery up until you get either a big enough gap or the end of the season comes, then he sounds like he's more than willing to be on the pitch. And again, it's another one of those stories and personalities that really kind of endears itself to the fans, doesn't it? Playing on through injury. I'm not saying for one second that you do anything ridiculous to compromise your long-term health, but it's obviously something he can deal with. And again, a reflection on the kind of grit that he brings to the side.
Burnsy?
He's got a lovely subtlety of touch and subtlety at
very much so.
Pass at times. I've always enjoyed watching him, and I'm really enjoying watching him play for City at the moment. I think he's been a real find bringing him back. Now he's found his fitness. He's going 90 minutes and he's getting up and down the park and making a real contribution. Just to ask on McBurney, is there any latest news on him as to when he might be, Baz, or when he might not be? What's the situation there?
I think if you asked him, he'd be playing now or playing tomorrow. But I think they really want to be careful with him. So I would be surprised if we saw him at QPR, maybe in the 1 or 2. I know fans are getting a bit frustrated because it's like, oh, he was out for a bit. Then he's out for a bit longer. He's got a calf problem. He was due to come back, and I think as he was on his way back, he had a bit of a setback, so that pushed him back another week, 10 days. They just want to be really careful with him. They don't want to bring him back and everyone goes, yeah, we've got him back. And then bang, he's got to come off after 15 minutes. So I would be surprised if we saw him at QPR. And by definition, the Ipswich game after that might come too soon because that's the Tuesday of that week. So we'll have to wait and see. Look, they've got this 2 week. Well, they've got pretty much a week off before they start their full preparations for QPR this time next week. So they'll assess him. It might be that he makes quicker than expected recovery in this week, and then he's available to get back in training next Tuesday. I think more realistically, it's going to be later in November before we see him. But let's wait and see. What I would say is, Destin scored now. Josh got 5 in 7. Carl Joseph's got back on the goals as well. Other players are chipping in. So obviously we all want him back in the team, but you also don't want to knacker him because you've got 11 games from QPR. You've got 11 games running through to the FA Cup break in the second week of January. So you want everybody available. It's like Balumi. Balumi was on the bench, and if they'd have come on, if they'd have been 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, Balumi would have come on. But the fact the game was, they were 2-2 and going into the final 11 minutes before Joff scored, they didn't want to throw him on. They want to be really careful with him. So now Balumi's got 2 weeks to prep for QPR, so he'll be much stronger. Miller back end of this month, beginning of the next month. They need everybody they can going into that crucial festive period, because if they rush players back and they go out again, they're going to be in a really difficult situation going through Christmas when they're playing 4 or 5 games in 10 days or whatever. It's stupid. So, they've got to be careful, haven't they?
I'll just read a couple of messages, and I'm conscious we've not come to Kathryn for a while. But one from Luke Bedford, and I'll plant the seed of this question because I think it's an interesting question. What's the odds on Zambrano or Tufan coming in on loan on January? And Taylor Bedford, I don't know whether they're related or whether they're from Bedford Prutts, because I know you're a geography freak. Does I like this from Taylor Bedford. Does anyone know if Kyle Joseph's stopped running yet? Think I saw him running down the A63 after the game. He's got some work rate, Kathryn, hasn't he? I don't think I can remember a City player who's worked quite that hard and quite that non-stop. Can you? He just keeps going.
It was in the second half, wasn't it, where I think he was chasing down, like, the Portsmouth had the ball at the back. He chased it down. I think he got a block and it went out for a goal kick, and then he sort of fired the crowd. It was like he'd set up celebrating a goal.
Added time, Kathryn. That was an added time, and the roar was like a goal. Yeah, it sums him up. He runs just quickly.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like,
he runs 12k.
Like that. I don't think he scores that second goal if he doesn't have that, like, in him, because he was really reaching for it. And I know he misses chances. Like, he's not quite as clinical in front of goal as McBurney is, but he has got that in him where it doesn't seem to this season. It doesn't deter him. He still gets himself back up and he goes again.
Absolutely. We got invited down to the Tigers Trust Arena back end of last week with they were doing the part of the EFL Action Week, and Louis Coyle and Kyle were delivering a coaching session to some BTEC students. And one of the questions from one of the young lads there was to Kyle about his work ethic, and he was like, "No, I run 12k a game. It's what I do. It's for the team." And you just can't not be. Yes, he misses. I mean, he had a gilt-edged header on Saturday, arguably easier than the one he scored, and he missed the target. So you've just got to accept with Kyle that, like the one at Norwich, when he does brilliantly to rob Duffy of the ball, and then either doesn't find the square ball to JB or doesn't find the goal. You're just going to have to accept with Kyle that he's a 1 in 5, 1 in 6 at best striker, but his work ethic and what he does for the team and the goals he creates from his work ethic is just phenomenal, Kathryn.
It is, yeah, but that header, it was just like I'm still surprised that he got above his man. It was like he was, and then I think it took him a little bit to stand up and celebrate it. But I'm pleased for him, because it was difficult for him last season where he came in, and that was kind of what he was trying to do, but obviously everything was just kind of bleak and depressing, so maybe it wasn't as effective as it is this season, and maybe the style of play that we're playing this season suits him a little bit better, and he's able to do that pressing more than he was last season. But it feels like he's got a bit of confidence now, and like when he is not getting the goals, it isn't maybe affecting him as much as it would have done last season, and he just looks like a little bit of a different. He looks stronger as well, like he looks physically better. And I know you sort of said earlier in the season that when you spoke to him pre-season, he'd been carrying that injury, and he's kind of, he looks physically a lot better than he did when he first came in. So, and I think it's testament to the forward players, him included, that the only game we've lost without McBurney was that Derby game, which we shouldn't have lost. So, as sad as I was when you said they don't think we'll see McBurney at QPR. They have been doing okay in the goals department without him, which was one of the biggest concerns we had at the start of the season. And to be fair, that they've coped admirably. Oh God, couldn't say that then. Wouldn't come out.
Prutts, when Miller's back and Balloumy's back and McBurney's back, they've got. I mentioned this earlier to Burnsy about them in midfield, but going forward, whatever that front four is going to look like, because the obvious one you go, well, of course, Carl comes out of the team because you go Miller one side, Balloomy the other. You have Joff in the 10, and then you have McBurney through the middle. That would be the front four. But Joseph brings so much energy to the team, so much graft and he's key in the press and all that sort of stuff. It's almost like, well, actually, you can't take Joseph out. You've got to find somewhere to get him in and fit everybody else around him and Joff and McBurney. So it becomes really difficult, doesn't it?
It does. And you mentioned me speaking to Sergey a couple of times, and a couple of weeks ago, it was about how City and he, as the boss, manage a team that's not at full strength, in inverted commas. The next test comes when he's almost got an embarrassment of riches in relative terms going forward for City, because you've got to make sure that the players that have done so very well so far, like McBurney, and we know Miller's obviously long journey back to proper fitness, but what he brings to the side, deserve their chance. And arguably, you don't have City in this position without that stellar opening couple of months from Ollie McBurney. So he deserves his chance to get back in the team to keep showing us what he can do. But given the fact that it's a squad game, these players have come in and done wonderfully well. I think it's wonderful the way you talk about Carl and what his example is to the rest of the side, because if he was a player that had that work rate and was regularly scoring, 15 plus goals with all the chances that he's got, with the greatest respect, he's not playing for Hull City going promotion from the Championship, is he? He's knocking on the door of a team that's going up automatically, or possibly the bottom end of the Premier League. And that maybe, hopefully that's not too much of a leap of kind of discussion with regards to this type of player. But because he does lead the line well, because going back to the point that was made by the fan messaging about how he links play up and holds the ball up, he creates energy at the top of the field, and he creates dynamism for the team to get forward, and deserves what he's getting at the moment. And people, taking note of that, because hard-working football will never go unnoticed and will never become something that is unfashionable nor needed. You do need players such as that, and it does lift the crowd, and it lifts the rest of your team. If you've got a centre forward doing his job, it pushes you forwards in midfield, drags the defence up behind you, inherently gets the opposition further away from your goal. So going back to the question about who plays where, I do agree with that. But what it hopefully does do is breed competition, but the best type of competition, which is not players looking covetously at others with regards to those starting berths, but pushes them on to want to be better for themselves, to push those players in those starting positions that have to be at the level to make sure they stay in the team. Because as we've seen, you take the Preston game, and we've discussed it, Sergey does not care one jot who he drags out the team if they're not playing well, does he? If he gets to 45 minutes, lads, you've been crap. You lot are coming off. And the fact that you can change 5 players shows that absolutely everyone's got to be at the very top level to make sure that they stay in it. And it'll be a test of his ability as a coach to keep a squad happy. It'll be a test of the character of the players that don't feel that the noses have been put out by not potentially playing in the team when other players come back, or those players that do come back thinking, well, because of how transitional football is and transient, you can be the main man for 2 months. But if you're not the main man for a month, you've got to work your way back in. And that's a test of Ollie as an example of what he brings to the side and his experience and maturity in the squad.
Burnsy, in the last 6 games, only Coventry and Derby with 15 have taken more than the 13 points that City have got. So they're the third best team in form. What that's done, and does it not give Jakirovic space? Because if City are, let's say City are 19th or the 20th in the table, the call and the pressure to bring McBurney, Lundstram, Miller, Balloomy straight back into the team would be massive, because he would need those players. But the fact that they're scoring goals, they're winning football matches, they're collecting points without all these players, does that not bide him time that he doesn't, at QPR or against Ipswich or against Middlesbrough or whoever it's against in the next 4 or 5 games, he can afford to be a bit more, as he was on Saturday with Balumi, he can afford to be a bit more patient and not rush these players back, because the players in the team are doing so well. And maybe it's a bit disrespectful to the likes of Gelhardt, to Crooks, to Kyle, to even Destan, who scored, to say, well, these players are coming back, you're hooked, you're straight out of the team, because they're playing well, they're winning games.
I think for me, what he's earned is he's earned respect very quickly. I think the quality of his decision making in terms of picking a team, in terms of managing the team, managing the players, has been top notch. He doesn't get his substitutes wrong, I don't think. There might be the odd occasion where it's not paid off, but I look at in the round at all the decisions he makes, and he gets it right, and the players will know that. They'll know it's the best for them and the best for the team. Okay, you might say, "Well, I should be in the team," but I think he's got them all bought into it. So I don't really see it as being. It's a nice problem to have, but I don't see it as being a major problem. And I think he'll navigate it beautifully from what I've seen so far. And because of the confidence of his methods have brought results for them. He's made them better players. He's made them a better team. So I think it's really encouraging. I am so impressed with him. It's embarrassing, really. Frankly, I've become a bit of a fanboy. It's terrible. It's not like me at all. But I like the way he goes about his work. I know you asked for some highlights, Baz, on the 1904 Club with a question. So I'll read a couple of answers out because I don't want anybody to feel left out. My highlight, says Dane, has been the quality of our attacking play. Some of the precise passing movements, like the build-up to Destan's goal on Saturday, is so good to watch. The fact we will be getting some top larkers back makes me much more excited than unwrapping some socks on Christmas Day. Or you're living the dream there, Dane, aren't you? And Dan Adamson says, not a highlight as such, but I just enjoy the games at home now. We're a totally different opponent this season. Last season, we would throw potential wins away to soft goals and the guaranteed goal conceded straight after half-time. Enjoying the season, where will it take us? Can I just go back to Luke Bedford's message, mentioning Zambrano and Tufan? Again, one of my grandson's football yesterday morning, somebody was talking to me about Tufan, saying, "Is Tufan coming back, Burnsy?" And I don't know. Is he on the radar, Baz? What do we know?
I mean, he was talked to in the summer. I'd be surprised at this stage. I think Zambrano is more likely. I think they've always viewed Zambrano as a long-term asset and a very, very talented, potentially a young footballer with a lot of potential, despite obviously his year out. So he's obviously at Maribor at the minute, a club Ajin is involved in. I would be amazed if at some point we didn't see that transfer happen. Tufan, I don't get the feeling that he's Jurkovic, a player that Jurkovic is falling over for at the minute. And given the fact they've not got a huge amount of squad space, I would suspect that's unlikely at this stage. And the players that I've heard about, Tufan isn't one of those. So Zambrano probably at some point. Whether January is a bit too soon, maybe next summer. But obviously there's a transfer situation there. What that looks like. Are City out of their restrictions next summer? Will they avoid any more late payments? We hope they do, and then obviously they can trade normally next summer. But that's one to watch for. That's one to park for now, I think.
I was going to say there was a question for Graham Cannon about Joffy, but we answered that last week. Just quick summary of your expectation, Baz, if I'm right, is that he will stay the season. There is in theory, Leeds could call him back, but your expectation is he'll stay the season. Graham, listen to last week's 1904 Club, but Baz will give you a quick 30 seconds now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. There could well be interest from higher up in January, and that'll be down to Leeds. At this stage, there's absolutely no indication that that's going to change. That Joff will be here for the summer. I think he's got a year left after this season at Ellen Road. Leeds may well be back in the Championship and look at Joff and think, he's been banging them in the Championship. Maybe we've underestimated him, and we can get something out of him. But Joff loves it here. He wants to be here. He's scoring goals. That's as it is.
Okay, we were going to mention it's Don Robinson, weren't we? Because the former chairman passed away. I've seen some lovely tributes to him, and there was a lovely one from Hull City Kits, which I think is Les Motherby, just talking about Don Robinson and how much he meant to him and his family, because he told a story of that Don was conscious that hard economic times and things like that, so he was helping people who had maybe gone out of work and what have you to enable them still to come to the football and everything like that. There's some great tributes out there if you've not read them. And he was sort of before my time. I only ever met him once when I was looking at yachts in Puerto Banús. I was only looking at yachts because I was sat in the harbour having a cold Spanish lager, and he wandered past and introduced himself. And I had a fascinating conversation. Fascinating bloke. I couldn't afford a rowing boat, never mind a yacht. And I was just having a look. He was great. He'd have loved Saturday. Including Charlie Hughes doing his wrestling impression, because Don was a wrestler. There was one point in the second half there was 3 falls and a submission against one of the Portsmouth players. But anyway, I thought I'd mention it.
Well, I think it's a super pertinent thing to do because obviously we're all extremely fond of that little corner of East Yorkshire. When you get genuine kind of larger than life characters, and people have used the word eccentric, which suggests. I think the word eccentric always kind of suggests the slightly unhinged, whereas he was anything but. He was just super charismatic, and his beliefs and his abilities to think outside of Scarborough is phenomenal, really. And that's no downer on Scarborough. I love it, but the fact that he could think the way that he did, achieve what he achieved, be able to touch as many lives, and then get all the way through to his 10th decade on the planet, I just think is phenomenal, really. And you're right, Burnsy. People and the tributes that you read with what he did and how he would have helped a multitude of people across his life is just. If there's anything that could be taken from it in the sense of where you want to be come the final knock-ins, then if you're anywhere near what that man achieved and his reception and his remembrance, then you've lived a life, haven't you?
Absolutely, and it's he would have loved that performance, and on that. So thoughts to Don's family and his friends. I know the club plan to mark his passing at the age of 91 later in the season. So fair. Thoughts with everybody, but what a character and what a job he did.
They'll be trying to source a white horse, won't they? That'll be it. They'll be trying to say, they'll be checking health and safety. Can we get a white horse on the pitch?
for one day, they need to all be selling Tiger Cola in the concessions. Have a taste. There's a nostalgic taste for you.
The Tiger Cola came back last. I think it was last year on a jumper or a T-shirt. The club was selling in the. They do some phenomenal stuff, like the retro stuff, and that was Tiger Cola. I just want to finish with one question that we spoke about last week. About this was before the Derby game, obviously after winning at Carrow Road. About City, are they genuine playoff contenders? And I think the general consensus amongst all of us was yes, they were. And at that point, they were out of the top 6. A point or on goal difference or whatever it was. They're now in it, and they've got a little bit of a 2-point cushion, but still, they're in the top 6 on merit. Kathryn, just quickly, it's a 2-part question. Do you still see them as playoff contenders, and do you think they can go the distance? And the second question is, I asked Sergei on Saturday to mark out of 10 how he thought the start of the season had been the first 15 games, and he said 7. We've been fantastic, but there's room for improvement. If you can answer those two.
I think yes. I think we are contenders. I do think there are teams further down the division, like the table, that will kind of get their act together. I think Ipswich are one of them that are doing it now. I look at Southampton winning 2 games after letting their manager go, and you think, are they going to get their act together? I think West Brom is still much further down than I expect them to be. But at the minute, 100% we are contenders. I think 7.5. Is how, if we can do 0.5s as a
0.5,
because I think 7 is I think we're 6 is sort of like average, isn't it? I'm thinking of like player ratings, and it's sort of like everyone's a 6 unless you have a shocker. And if you do something reasonable, you're a 7. If you've been exceptional, you're an 8 or a 9. And I think we've not been exceptional, but we've been definitely above, average, and we're in that bracket of nearly an 8, but I would say 7.5.
Burnsy?
Be rubbish on Strictly in so many ways, but if I was sitting as a judge, it would be indecisive. I'd be holding up an 8 or a 9. I think it's far exceeded my expectations of what they were going to do this season, and it's transformed the club. It's transformed the support and the feeling about the club. So at least an 8 for me, maybe even a 9. And there is no reason on earth why they can't sustain it.
Prutts?
There's an insight there into the Rain Man-like mind of Kathryn there, wasn't there? About how she just wanders through life scoring things. When you see it quietly like staring at us on this conversation, she's thinking that question was a 6. That answer was a 4. I think you're in 7.5 to 8 territory, just to really get between you two on the right-hand side of my screen, and Baz is always with me. Because it does exceed expectation. It does go against potentially what we thought. Not go against it, because it sounds like we might have been on a bit of a downer, but there was a certain sense of trepidation, wasn't there, before the start of the season. And it's gone beyond anything I think that any City fan would have believed to have happened. And then now comes the expectation, because we've seen a pretty hefty portion of what the Championship's got to offer. I'll go along with what Kathryn says. Recently bigger clubs that need to pull the fingers out, you get the feeling that they're going to start going through the gears. But to back up Burnsy's point, what we've seen, there's nothing I've seen in the Championship that should inherently scare what Hull City are going to face. So yeah, between 7.5 and an 8, and given where they find themselves at this juncture in the season, it's about keeping the squad happy, keeping the squad motivated, and maintaining consistency. And Sergei's done that. And with the players coming back, they should be very strong contenders for a really strong end to this particular year, I'd say.
Fantastic stuff. Right. Let's call it a day there. Cracking show today, folks. Thanks very much. Prutts, as always, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Love to see all of you and talk to all of you.
Oh, how lovely. Kathryn, pleasure.
As always.
And Burnsy, never a chore.
No, I've enjoyed it, as always.
And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. And also, thanks for getting in touch. We do read all your comments. So thanks very much. And just quickly, apologies if you were watching on Facebook Live after the game. There was a problem with the Facebook Live, so no comments came up. I saw when I got home afterwards, there was 50, 60 comments, but none of them ever showed up on the Facebook Live itself. So apologies if I didn't get to your questions. I just didn't see them. So blame Mark Zuckerberg and the people at Facebook. So that's that. Apologies for that. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will be back again soon. Up those Tigers.